What's going on, Mr. Welcome back to Game Time 123. We're back here for the predictions for the ABL Draft. I did this with the NBL Draft, and actually it was like an hour and 30 minutes. This one probably won't be nearly as long. I had some other things I had to discuss during that video. During that one as well, so it should be that long. So, to start off this one and discuss how this works. Basically, this is going to be what I predict for each of the games in the entire season. The strength of schedule be basically it's the way it works for strength of schedule is if they, for every win they got divided by the team that team got divided by the total number of games is equal to it. So, for example, if they somehow got an undefeated record, they could have a still have 16 points. Obviously, most of them do not have nearly that much. So here we go. We're gonna get onto this. I'm gonna be pausing this back and forth between this, so it will be set up in such a way so you guys will have a little bit of minutes. To start off, we back here. I already did these before. Let me go ahead and go ahead and show you what I had for the predictions for that one. Yeah. And you'll see, if you go to it now, I think I'll put this things under this too. You'll go to each one of these and you'll see what I predicted for each one of them. And I also have this thing here. You won't see this one for most of this because the context is, I don't think it's as necessary to see it. But that's what you're going to basically see. I think I may have just get the normal. There you go. So, here we go. We're going to go ahead to the Leland Cats. The Leland Cats have are going to be one of the best teams in the league going into this next year. Of course, as of last year, they had one of the best records in the NBL at the given time. So they have a really good chance at doing quite well this next season. I think honestly, Leland Cats, they've got first in their division last year, and honestly, 15-1 was actually ridiculous. But now let's go ahead and look at this. Starting off, they have a divisional game in the week 1. They're going to play against the Jets. And this is a tough game. They're in one of the toughest divisions, I would say. I'm going to say right now they get a win in week 1 because of the confidence. They get a win week 2, put themselves at 1-2-0. And then you got the Werewolves. The Werewolves are going to be tough. Even though they're not exactly going to be the team. They're not going to be the worst team. They're not going to be the best team. It comes down to the fact of what I think is going to happen for these teams. The Werewolves are indeed still going to be, I think, honestly, very good. Yes, Werewolves with the actual evidence. This is before the draft, so everything's going to occur before this. And so this could all change. And I will go back and react to this video and the other NBL video, which will be linked at the end of this video, and kind of get my hands. Okay, start off with going ahead to the Werewolves. The Werewolves are going to be a really tough team. And I wouldn't be surprised if this game goes into a pretty big fight. At this time, I do think the Werewolves are going to have a great fight. I do think at home is not going to be here. I'm going to say they win this game, go ahead and make it 2-0 in the division. Then they play the Stars. Stars are tough. They're another tough team. They're 14-2 last season. I don't think this is going to be an easy game. And for them, I'm going to give them a loss here. I think they're going to get a loss in that one because the Canucks, they're just not quite what they need to be. They have the Jets again. They're playing at the Jets this time. That's a loss. I don't think they're going to get enough to go in and put them at 2-1. Putting them down here at 4-2. Then you got the Otters. I'm sorry, it's very tough to say with the Otters because the Otters are a really good team. The problem is the Otters just don't have what it takes. I'm going to give them the win here. I think it's perfectly reasonable to say the Otters do win that game. Then you got the Tigers. Tigers are going to be terrible. In fact, they're probably predicted to be one of the worst teams in the given possibility. I don't think the Tigers are going to be in a position to even show up, to be honest, in the context of this. Tigers predicted to be 2-8, and guess what? This is going to be a win for them. Starting off the season with a 5-2 record. Then they got the Athen. The Athen are the team that's kind of debatable. It's very difficult to predict what the Athen are going to do. Athen have been great. They have been bad. Looking back, at the playoff record for the Athen, Athen have only had 5 seasons, and they've been 37, 50, and 1. 88 games. They did not have any, but they've made the playoffs 3 times, which is impressive for a team like that. I'm going to say they do win this game. I don't think there's going to be much of a chance for the Lynn Cats to lose this game, putting them at 3-1, 6-2. Halfway through the season, they'll be 6-2. Then you got the Lightning. And the Lightning are also one of those teams that have just joined recently. They've made it only once. They have, however, the opposite. They have 50 wins and 38 losses. And honestly, they're going to be a tough team. They're going to be ridiculously difficult. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to say this is going to be a game that they're going to have to battle in it. This game can easily go in it. And I do think there's going to be no little chance the Leland Cats will win this game. I got the Leland Cats losing that game, putting them at 6-3. That will be putting them at 3-2. Then you got the Dolphins. Dolphins, not a bad team. They're not a good enough team to win this game. Though, so we're gonna put the Leland Cats at winning that game, putting them at 7-3. Then you got the Werewolves again. You know, we got 2 games. But you're playing at the Werewolves this time, and it's not going to be fun to play at the Werewolves. And even though these games are all happening in different stadiums, the Werewolves will get to choose the stadium. And unfortunately, I'm going to say that's going to be a loss. I'm going to say they get a loss against the Werewolves in the second one, which is not, terrible. Then you get the Lynx. Lynx, one of the toughest teams. It's beating the Panthers barely in the final minutes. I'm saying this is going to be so tough. I'm going to edge them and say that they do not win this game. Either, I'm going to say the Lynx win that game. It's a tough one. And honestly, I could see that one going either way. Then they play the Hawks. The Hawks are not going to be good enough to beat them, putting themselves at 8-5. Then you get the Lightning again. I'm sorry. Playing at the Lightning just does not give you a hint. I'm going to say it's another 3. That's a 3-4. Then they play the Bulldogs. That's a win. and they're going to finish off the season with another 8th and another win, putting themselves at 4-4 going into this next season. I do think the Blue Cats are going to be in a great position to possibly do something, but unfortunately it is not going to give them the best position. I mean, 6 losses, 10 wins is what we're looking at, and honestly, that's not bad. Is he going to win the division? It's hard to say right now. We've got the team that is in the most difficult position. In fact, they have the 3rd most difficult schedule in the NBL right now. And honestly, this is probably it. They're going to start off by playing the Jets. They will lose that game. They will also then lose against the Lightning. Both these teams are ridiculously hard, and honestly, they could easily lose both those games. And start off, and that's both divisional games, so they're going to start off 0-2 and 0-2. Then they get the Stars. Stars are one of those teams that could be either way, and unfortunately, that's another loss for them. They're going to start off not exactly in a position against. Then you got the Supermen. Looking at how the Supermen have done, Supermen have one of the weirdest things because the Supermen have not done really well over the last couple of years. Looking just at the Supermen themselves, they have not done great, but they've done ridiculously good over the last couple of years. Not making the playoffs last year, and unfortunately, that's another L. They're going to start off with 0-4. And looking at the Jets having 0-4 record to start off is just not great. It's not helping when you have a 5th loss and a 6th loss going into the season at the start, and that doesn't put them at 0-3. The good news is you're going to beat the Lightning the 2nd time, and the Werewolves, and the 8th. So you got 3 games that are going to go straight back up, putting yourself back into the running. Then you've got the Ravens, and the Ravens are going to be tough. They're going to be tough. Not tough enough though, because you're going to get another win here. Yeah. Then you got the Kings. That's going to be a win here. The Kings are just not going to be quite good enough to beat you Jets. It's possible though. Then we got UNC. UNC is really good. And I don't want to say it, but UNC has been kind of like, let's just jump around here. And unfortunately, it's going to be difficult to say it. I don't think the UNC is going to be as good enough to beat the Jets, though. That's going to be another win. So we got ourselves 6 wins, 6 losses going into 12 games in the season. We got the Tigers, that's a win. So we're actually getting a little better. We're going to start off pretty bad. But then we're going to get 7 games in a row. There's a streak. And then you lose against the Dragons. The Dragons are just going to be able to come back and beat you. But it's okay. It's okay, because you're going to be able to get a win against the 8th and a win against the Werewolves. You know, putting yourself at 9-7, putting yourself at 5-3 in the division, which is still pretty good. Now you do have one of the toughest schedules, but luckily you have a much easier schedule at the end of the season. While you still probably have one of these games as a loss, 8-8 would still be a great record to go for. This would be the team that could be ridiculously good. And unfortunately, it's difficult to actually put the Lightning in a position there because they do have one of the most difficult schedules. They're also in a position where they're kind of like, we could win. We're probably going to do some games. We're going to win some games. We're going to lose some games. I actually think it's going to be better than they might say it. You're going to win against the Legends. You're going to win the first 4 games, 5 games, 4 games, I'd say. You've got 5 games going to win. 3-0, putting yourselves at 5-0 to start the season off. Then you get the Hawks, Unfortunately, that's going to be a loss. Then you got the Jets. That's a loss. And of course, I do want to point out that I do put these things together. I'm not actually corresponding them and say, hey, they lost this week. They're predicted to lose under the Jets, but they're predicted to win under the Lightning. I'm not doing it too well off of that, so it might be a little bit. These are not going to be completely accurate. The same hits. But you're going 5-2. That's pretty good. You do have a 4-1 going in this one. Playing the Bobcats. So I don't know what just happened. I don't know what happened there. Lost the sheet for a second, I guess. And then you got a win against the Bobcats. Then you got one of the 3 most toughest games on the schedule. Quite literally right after you play against the Bobcats. And honestly, to start off with halfway through the season, going 8 games, getting 6-2, it's honestly still pretty good. But you do have a 3-game win streak that could easily be advanced. I think you win against the Cats, just barely. You win against the Winners, but then you lose against the second game against the Ethan. But Ethan don't like losing against the same opponent. Putting yourself at 3. And with 11 games, 8-3 is still pretty good. You got the Otters. Otters are going to be a tough competitor in this year's stands. And unfortunately, you got yourself a loss here. It could easily be a win, but it's probably going to be a loss for that one. Putting yourself at 5-1 off the season. Then you got the Werewolves again. You're playing at home here. That's a win. Then you're going to play at home here. You get a win against the Cats. You get to have a great 7-1. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games. 7-1 record against putting yourself at just the last 2 games where you're going to only lose so far 4 games, putting yourself at a 10-4 record going into the last 2 games of the season. And these are super easy. Westville could honestly be doing something else. Packers could do something else. But unfortunately, as of right now, I think those are both pretty containable wins, putting yourself at 12-3. And honestly, that could put you in a very good position just to even win the division. Now, this is going to be a team that I specifically said before was going to be terrible. And I am completely think that's going to be wrong about that. I put them originally at no wins in the division. I think that's probably not even close. These are all going to be the ends. They're going to win against the Chargers. Unfortunately, the Chargers is probably not going to look. I got the Packers in this game to lose, but it is going to be very difficult. And we have 2-0 wins. You do play the Lily Cats, and Lily Cats are going to be super tough. I do have you losing that game, but you're playing at the Lily Cats. If you were playing at home, you might get a chance. At this point, Westville. It's hard to say how Westville's going to do this year. I'm going to give them the win and say it's 3-1. Then you got Ethan. Ethan is one of those teams that's going to be against. They only got 3 wins last season, and unfortunately, they're going to be much better. I'm going to give them the loss here when they're playing at the Ethan, but I'm going to be nice. I'm going to give them the win when they're playing at home, which is this other one, which is versus. Yeah, so when they play at home, I will give them the win there, but we'll get to that in a second. Bulldogs. I really want to give them the win, but the Wolves and Werewolves players have not been great. And looking at how the Bulldogs have been doing, the Bulldogs are not exactly a team to be against. In fact, they're only 37-52-1 versus the Werewolves, which may change their name, are only slightly better over it. I have to give them the win here, but I could see this game going either way. Themselves at 4-2. When they play the Colts, yeah, they're gonna win. There's no way they lose the game against the Colts. If they lose against the Colts, I don't know what will happen, because there's no chance that they lose against the Colts. They play the Jets here, yeah, they will lose that game. They play the Jets, and unfortunately, that just game is not a divisional game. They're not winning any. They have not won any games in the division yet, but it's okay because they're going to win against the Tigers, putting themselves at 6-3. They haven't won a game in the division yet. They are not winning against Lightning, putting themselves 0-4. Oh, it's starting pretty badly here, even though they've won every game outside of the division. Quite literally, they've won every game outside the division. They play the Lumen Cats again. That's another loss. Unfortunately, they're not going to get a win against the Lumen Cats. I don't see it. You get the Lions. That is a win. You are going to get a win off the Lions. Lions and Women have played before, and they are actually undefeated against the Lions. -1 game. So it's like, let's see. Currently, they are 12-2. So, okay, it's not undefeated, but close enough to being 12-2. Werewolves have won 12 of those games. Games up to this point. Wait. Let's see. Puts them at 5-1. Play the Lightning game, that's another loss. Unfortunately, the Lightning are just going to be too good. And in fact, I thought you looked at the Lightning ones, and well, let's see. The Lightning have won 90% of the games against the Werewolves. 90%. Now, think about this. The Lightning have only been around for 5 seasons. They've only played, and they've played 10 times against the Werewolves. And in that one we got, they have won every one of them against the Werewolves. Werewolves have not won a single one against the Lightning, and unfortunately, it's the good news is we had the Athens, and that will be your first win inside of the division. That puts you at 1-6, which is great. You've won a game in the division. You won a game in the division. That's awesome. Bad news is that doesn't really help much when you're losing against the Pirates and then losing against the Jets in the last 2 games of the season, putting yourself at 8-8. And sadly, that does put you at 1-7, which I think means it's a little better. But honestly, this is probably going to be a team that's going to be kind of either way. Who knows how the Werewolves are even going to do. And fact is, they're losing their star player at the end of the season. That player has already decided to retire. Hannah Thomas is going to retire at the end of the season. And unfortunately, they're going to say they really don't want to lose her. But it's been almost, I believe it's 12 seasons at this point. And she decided she wants to move on. Now we've got the Athen, which are if you did see them, it's the Owl. Basically, it's a God-based team. This is one of those teams that have struggled. Now, when I say struggled, looking at what they've got here, just for the Athen themselves, Athen are 37-50-1, playing 88 games so far. They have actually made the playoffs 3 times. It's very hard to believe they have, but those games were all divisional wins. They played the division, and looking at their division records here, they actually made the Ball Bowl in their first season as a divisional winner. Then they lost the wildcard round. They have not made it past the division round since then, and they've actually had a really sad season. Honestly, it's going to be interesting for them to be honest, because they do have one of the more moderate schedules. Not exactly the hardest, but not exactly the easiest. They play the Beagles in week 1. They will, however, have a hard time with the Beagles. Beagles are not going to be a team to be put up with. The Beagles are going to be difficult in some ways, but they're not going to be super difficult. I think this is going to be a tough one. I would not be surprised if the Athens win this one, but I'm going to give them a loss right now. I think they're going to have a slight problem. It's going to be slightly difficult. Then they are going to lose against the Lions. I do have that for 100% insurance that they're going to lose that game. They played the Lightning. That's another loss. Yeah, there's no chance they win that game. And I'm probably going to look back at this and say it's going to be a win here. Hawks are going to be a problem. Aiden Hawks are not exactly a team that's going to be interesting. It's going to be a close one. I wouldn't be surprised if this one actually goes to overtime, but I'm still going to give the Aiden the loss here. I hate to say that, but then they play the Werewolves. They're going to get another loss. So 5 games in a row. They got the Chargers, though. That's a win. They're going to give the Beagles again. They're playing at home this time. I think they win against them. So we're going to get them 2 wins. This is after 5 straight losses. And halfway through the season, they play the New England Cats, and they'll lose. So they're not going to have a very good starting record, especially when they're going to have no wins in the division. They'll play the Jets, and looking between the Jets, they've actually played quite a few times. They've played a total of, I believe it's 8 times at this point, and it is 4-4. So they're actually even in that regard. So it's a tough one. I'm going to give the Jets the benefit, though, at here because they're playing at home, and give them, oops, that's the wrong way, give them a loss here, put them at 0-4. But it's okay because they will get the Hawks the next week, and they're playing at home versus the Hawks. They're going to get the win against the Hawks in their second matchup. They'll understand the team a little bit better. They will get a loss against the Lightning. Unfortunately, that puts them at 0-8, and that also puts them at no wins in the division. Unfortunately, their only wins outside it. The Packers are going to be an interesting team, and I do happen to think the Packers are going to be a team that's just not good. Looking at this, I believe the Packers are one of the few teams that have not ever made the playoffs, and unfortunately this year is probably not one of them. I give the Athens the win here, going to put them at 4-8. Not particularly a great record. Playing the Supermen next year. The Supermen are also a team that has not done well, but they've made playoffs in 2 consecutive years. And they're also probably going to do decently. Not well enough, though. I don't think it's going to. I do think the Athens are going to lose this game. 4-9. Then they got 3 divisional hard games. They get a loss, and a loss. They might get lucky to play and win against the Jets at home, but unfortunately, I don't think any of these games are going to be. I don't think they're going to win any of the games in the division and put themselves at 4-12 in the season. Now, I do think there is a possibility that when they play at home, they'll do better and they'll actually win against the Jets. But as of right now, I just don't know. They're even. Basically, they're not going to be even after this season is over. We have probably one of the newest teams coming in the season. I think they're actually not going to be terrible. Looking at what they've had in the last couple of years, actually they've only been here for 2 years, I believe. Now think about it. Let me look at the Stars here. Stars have only played 1 year. They lost the divisional round. So actually, they're going to be good. No, I don't think that they're going to be good enough is the problem. And sadly, it just doesn't seem like to me they're going to have what they need. They play Westville in week 1. That is a win. They play the Cardinals week 2. That's also a win. They get that is going to be 2. They're going to get 1 win, 2 wins. Then they got the Jets. And the problem with the Jets and Stars, they've only played once. And the Jets, I believe, got the win in that one. I don't have the rosters up for me right now, or the games right now. But I do think the Jets and it are going to have a pretty big fight. And this game probably will go into, give or take, overtime. Now, granted, overtime is going to be a little bit easier this year, considering they're going to have a basically base of 10 instead of you get to choose. I have to give them the benefit of the doubt here and say that they will get lucky and win this game. No, that's not a divisional matchup, I'm pretty sure. Just to verify that is not divisional. No, that is not divisional. Then they got the Leland Cats. Oh. Leland Cats and Stars have also played. Bad news is that is their first loss of the season. It's not going to be a bad game. It's going to be a pretty tough game. No, but it's not going to be one of those games that they can't do much with. And unfortunately, I do think the Leland Cats are going to be a whole lot better than the Stars. Superman, that would be a win. They will win against Superman. Divisionally, they probably win there, putting themselves at their second win in the division, 4-1. They do have the Colts and Dogs, which should be both easy wins. Yeah, I don't think there's much of a chance. Halfway through the season, they'll play the Chargers, which is divisional. No, they get a win there because this no way. Which means they're going with 7-1, undefeated so far in the division. But in the first half of the season. Now, granted, they have an easy schedule for the first half of the season. They've got a very difficult schedule over the next half of the season. They play the Beagles twice, which are going to be a very good team. The Beagles and Stars did also play, and the Beagles won that game. And unfortunately, looking at the next thing here, they do have to play the Westville again. When they're playing at home, it's going to be a win. It's going to be a win. Even though they're playing, and I'm rephrase that is not playing. They're not playing at home here. They're playing at Westville here. And unfortunately, at Westville, it's not going to make it easy for them. I'm going to take them all, give them a loss here. Put them at, this is a one loss. It's not a big deal. Angels are going to be fighting hard against the Stars. I'm going to give them the win here. I do think they're going to have a very good position to actually win that. The Beagles, however, are going to be a tough team to beat. Both these teams played twice last season. The Beagles won one of them and Beagles won one of them and lost one of them. So it's just a pretty big fight for either one. They're playing at the Beagles. I believe that's going to get them a loss going into this next year. Going into this, they do play the Dolphins, which are going to be a tough team. That would be a loss. They'll play the Warriors, also a loss. They're going to get a few losses in a row. Then they're going to get a win against the second time they play the Beagles when they play versus the Beagles, not at the Beagles. And then we have the Tex. The Tex might be surprisingly good. They were really good last year. Actually, they came up in the end and won it. I do think they're going to lose that game. But then they're going to get another game against the Supermen. And unfortunately, this game will not go in their favor. They're going to lose that one as well. Putting themselves at 9-7, which is not terrible, but it's not going to be great. They're going to end up being... Check means 1-1, 1-2, 2-3, 3-3, 4-3. What other games do they play? They might only play those many games. It is going to be tough for these games, and I will say 4-3 is still going to be a really good record. And honestly, 9-7 is not a terrible record. It may not put you into the playoffs like it did last year, but it might get you a wild card slot, a low wild card slot, and this could be a very good season for them. And this team is higher and flying faster than a speeding bullet. One of the fastest teams in the league. It's the Supermen, and the Supermen are questionable really going into the season. They have a lower middle range. They do have some difficult games to start off. They'll play the Browns. Unfortunately, the Browns will be a loss. They will have a tough game against the Westville. They will win that. However, they'll win that one playing at home. Then they'll play the Colts going into the season. Colts are going to be not necessarily tough, but they should win that one as well, putting themselves at 2-1. They're going to have the Jets the next week. They will lose that. I believe it's going to be a loss for them. They're going to put them at 2-2. Then they got the Stars. I'm going to give them the benefit here and say that they do win, but they're going to lose at home. They're going to win it at home. But when they go away, it's going to be difficult, and they're going to lose that game. We get to the Dolphins game. That's a loss. There's just no way the Dolphins are going to have their fun and be able to make them. They get Westville a second time. They will get unlucky, unfortunately, and get another loss. And halfway through the season, they'll play the Beagles, which will be another loss. So they're not going too well. We got 4-4 going into this. Actually, not even that. It's 3-5. They're 2-3 in the division. They got the Chargers next week. This will come up to be a win. Lucky for them, they'll go 3-3. They'll play the Lynx. That will be a loss. The Supermen are just not going to be quite good enough. They'll get the UNC the next week and get another loss. Put themselves at 3-7. Going into the last five games of the season, they got the Bobcats, Nathan, the Chargers, the Angels, and these. In fact, they've got probably the easiest schedule going into the last one. They got themselves 5 straight wins. but they will lose late. They're gonna actually lose in the last one. I can't give them the win here. They go 8-8. They do get 4-4, and they go 8-8, which honestly isn't gonna be bad, but it may not be. They're gonna. I think they're gonna slightly miss the playoffs off of that one. Then we got Westville, one of the teams that is questionably, possibly changing their name into next season. Westville is be one of those teams that might not be good, might be great. They do have, however, one of the toughest starting 4 games. They will go with a loss, a loss, a loss, and loss. I'm going to say they actually lose against the Chargers here. I think the Chargers do have a possible chance of winning that game. Even though they're starting off with a 0-4 record, that doesn't hurt them. They will simply lose the next game, then they'll lose the next game, then they'll lose the next game. You can't just give them all L's just to go all the way every one of these games. I don't see them winning a single game to put them at, the whole game of 0-16 with 0-8 in the division. Yeah, that's how bad I think they're going to be. Okay, that's not fair. That's not fair. Okay, I'm going to give them a win. No. It's so difficult to see them actually winning any of these games. I think the 3 games, I'm going to say right now. Okay, I think they're going to win against the Colts. I think they'll win 1 game against the Beagles. Probably they'll win a game at home. I think they'll win 1 game against the Supermen. Probably also the game at home. They'll probably win against the Chargers at home. They're going to lose, Dance. I do think they're going to go with a 4-4 record, but that means they're going to have a 4-12 record, which is not good. And that's why I'm predicting them. Even though they've got one of the probably moderate easy schedules, sadly, it just is not going to show up for them. I could say arguably that the Beagles are probably going to be one of those teams that is going to have a easy away games, but difficult home games. When they play at home, I think they're going to have more losses at home they're going to have against. They played the Athens week 1. That is a win. They played the conference games. I'm actually going to say the win against the Dolphins. They will win at games. The first 3 games, they play 3 games at away, will be all victories. And none of those, however, are divisional games. They get the Colts the next week. Still going to be a win. So they're going to start off 4-0, which is great, before they get sadly defeated. No, they get another win against the Chargers. But unfortunately, they will get the next 3 games, actually all the way to the next away game will be all losses, as predicted. Because, they've got the Dragons. Dragons are really going to be tough. Superman, they could be good, they could be bad. Ethan, you ain't winning both games. Sorry. Angels, still going to be very tough. And honestly, Angels and Beagles have played 6 times before, and the Beagles have lost all but one of them. So it's not going to be great to put them at that point. Okay, now we get to the Westville. Westville, at away, they get a win. They get a win at Westville. Put themselves at 2-2. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 2-1. Then they will lose against the Stars and lose against the Warriors. That's the one game I'd say they probably will lose away. And it's unfortunate to say that, but I think it's going to be the way it's going to be. So they will be 3-2 at that point. Westfield is going to be an interesting game. I do think they win against Westfield, even though they are playing at home for them. They're at home. I think they're going to win there. They will, however, get a tough game against the Stars the next game, and this is going to be the toughest one yet. I'm going to say right now, they're going to win against the Stars. Yes, I know. But looking at how the Stars against, they only played once because the Stars have only been around 1 year. The Beals won one of those games and lost one of those games. So it's actually going to be interesting for that team, and I'd say they win. Go 5-2. And win, they're going to lose against the UNC, but they win against the Chargers. To put them in 6-2. And with going 10-6 is going to be awesome for them. And I think, honestly, that's a pretty reasonable record. I'm going to be interested to see how badly I predict these games in the future when we actually go back and look at these. Now we take a look at the Chargers, probably one of the teams that's easiest. Let me just put an L here and go whoop. Yeah, every game. They don't win a single game. Okay, that's not fair. I think they can't. This is would be terrible if they actually were predicted, because they have the number 1 pick and they will likely get the best player for that. There are a few games I'd say that they will probably get a good chance at. I'd say they win against the Colts. I'd say they win one of these games is a Super Bowl. Probably the game they're playing at home. Yeah, but unfortunately, that's it. I just don't see it. They win. They go. I don't see it. Anything else? I say they go 1-7 in the division. And honestly, they could do a whole lot better than this. I think they're gonna do a whole lot better than this. But as of predictions and showing how well they did, they're getting absolutely no wins and getting penalized like crazy. They had the most penalties of any team in the NBL. I could see the team probably getting better than this. But honestly, I think this is pretty fair. I say they get lucky and they might probably win against the 8th. But other than that, I just don't see it for them. I will say this, the Warriors were really good in their first season. In their only season where they were 10-6, didn't make it too far, and they unfortunately were picked to have the hardest schedule this next year. Unfortunately, it's not going to do too well for them. The good thing is they do have some easy games to play as well, and even though they are the 7th or 6th hardest schedule, they do have some games against. They do start off the season strong with a win against the Lynx. They will get a win against the Tex. They win against the Packers, and then they play the Panthers. And this is so tough because this is one of those games that they could. I do think they lose this game. I do think they go 3-1 start off the season, which is honestly not terrible to go off this one. Not mentioned they will go 2-0 in the division. They play the Lynx again, and this time they're playing at the Lynx, and that is an L. They'll have 2 losses. Put them at 2-1. They got the Giants the next week. Great job. You easily get a win here. Then you play the Cardinals. That's a win. Lions, tough one, but it's going to be a win. Otters, tough one again, but it's going to be a win. Tigers, that's easy. Packers again, easy. Beagles, easy. Stars, yeah, you're going to give themselves an L there. Otters, that's another easy. Then they got the Bobcats, that's easy. And then they got the Lions again. Nope. I do have them going at this point 12-4. Really good. going 6-2, I believe, in the division, which honestly I think is a fair statement. Even though they have probably one of the toughest schedules, the Warriors are in a position they will be, I think, really, really good. I wouldn't be surprised to see them back in the playoffs, even as it possibly the number one seed. If there is any team to apologize to, it is the Lynx. The Lynx have the third hardest schedule in NBL history. There's only 2 teams that have a harder schedule than them. And actually, I think, is that team? Sorry. Not quite. They've got a 9.0. They have the 37th, which is like, it's probably because I just mixed 2 up. But still, they have a ridiculously hard schedule going into this one. And sadly, they're not going to start off too hot. They're going to, of course, they're going to lose against the Warriors. There's no chance to win against the Warriors. They lose badly. I don't care to say that the Lynx, but the Lynx are going to be in a position where they're not going to be terrible. I don't think they're going to be this. They are going to lose week 1. But they bounce back right away with 4 wins. They play against the Warriors again. They win against that game. They play the Panthers. Now, this is a tough one because they are going 2-1, but they played the Panthers. And the only reason, by the way, they beat the Panthers because they went to Game 5. The Panthers won the first one. In fact, you're going to make sure I'm correct about this. They won the Volvo. If I'm correct about the playoffs, I don't have the playoffs. Because they went to Game 5. And honestly, this could have been decided so much earlier. And unfortunately, I'm going to give them a they're going to be really lucky if they can even beat the Panthers. Sadly, I do say the Panthers are not going to be quite as good this year, and I'm going to give them the win. It's tough to go with that one because it is going to be only the second time they've actually faced. At least I think they might play the third time. But the Panthers did lose. Even though they won 2 of those games, I do think the Panthers are going to be a little bit better. They play the Otters again. That will be a win. They play the Packers and the Lions. So we've got ourselves a pretty nice streak going 8-1. Putting themselves at 5-1. They play the Supermen. That's another win. They play the Hawks. This is another win. So for 10 games in a row after losing the first game, they win. They play the Leland Cats. And the Leland Cats and Lynx played in the last season. Guess what? The Lynx won the second game. They lost the first one, but they did a whole lot better in the second game, and I'm going to give them the win. I say 11 wins. That's 11 so far, putting them at 6-1. They win against the Dolphins. They win against the Lions. They win out. Other than week 1, they're going to be undefeated. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to say that they don't actually crush everyone in their path. I mean, I'm going to say it's going to be close. I will say the Panthers game could easily beat the Panthers game and the Warriors game. These 2 games right here, the Panthers and the Warriors game, could end up being them losing, which honestly I say the worst record I'd say they even see them having is probably looking at maybe 13-3. Maybe looking 1 game less than that, but they're not going to. I'm putting the Lynx, all my faith in the Lynx right now, and say they are going to go undefeated they could potentially go undefeated. They win week 1, they could potentially be sweeping everybody and go undefeated, be the next team to go undefeated. The only team other than it, there's only a few teams that have actually ever made undefeated, and those teams right now, I'm going to go look them because I'm pretty sure I have them all written down. And if I look at it, the only teams to ever go undefeated since 2016, the Panthers have done it 4 times since 2016. Looking at the next one, the Lightning have done it once. The Werewolves did, but they did it before 2016. So there have been 5 teams that have been defeated. I'll go look at those a little bit better. I think this is very much likely a team that could potentially. Now the only thing that makes me kind of question them, which is why I think we're going to lose week 1, is they're going to have they're not having perfect and they're not super inexperienced. They don't have the best draft picks this year because they do have one of the lowest needs. But I do see them having a very good season. I think this might be a little bit kill. This might be a little bit overkill. My prediction record right now really is 10-5, 10-6, but I'm putting them at 15-1. I trust that they will do really well, even though they have one of the toughest schedules. And we got next the Otters having the 3rd toughest schedule in the NBL right now. And this is going to be a tough. Yes, sadly, they're not going to do as well as the Lynx. They will have a win against the Bobcats. I don't see them losing that game. If they lose that game against the Rangers, I have them losing against both the games at Lynx, winning against the Lions, putting themselves at a 1-1, putting themselves at 2-1 at this point in time. They have the Ravens, the Bears, and the Lynn Cats. Those are all going to be ridiculously tough games. I could see them easily beat all 3, pretty much ties. I have to say, unfortunately, they are going to lose all 3 of those games. I hate to say this, I hate to do that for them, because I do think they're going to have some good positions, but unfortunately, it's just not going to do for them. Then they play the Lynx again. Unfortunately, it's going to be another loss to the Lynx. I don't see them winning that game. Okay, putting them at 2-5 and 1-2. Then they have the Westville. That should be a win. Question me there. I do have a question to say that they are going to be better than Westville, but in that game, I think they're going to be better because they're playing at home. Putting them at 2-2, 3-5 overall, up by half point. Then they got 3 really tough games, and sadly, I have them losing against the Warriors, but I do have them winning against both the Packers and the Lions. Going 5-5 up into the season 2, putting them up at 4-5-2. They do lose against the Lightning. They lose against the Packers in the second time they meet. They will lose against the Warriors in the second time they meet as well. Sadly, the 5 games they had, they do play the Panthers, and unfortunately, I think that's another loss. They play the Dogs. They'll get a win in that game, which put them just at 6-10. I think 5-3 is not terrible, but I don't know that it's going to be great. I don't think 6-10 is going to get them in the playoffs. I think that position is going to be kind of a place that they are not going to be a team to beat this year or a team to play against. I don't think they're going to do terribly, but unfortunately 6-10 is where I have them right now. and 3-5 in the division was what I potentially thought they were going to. I think 4-4 is probably a little more fair, but I could see them losing those games. You know, there is one team that I am been so disappointed in the entire time they have existed, and that's the Packers. 35 wins, 71 losses, 106 games, .3302 percentage, never made the playoffs, and sadly, this year is not the year for them either. Well, I do think they're going to do somewhat in a prediction that's going to be better. They lose. It's all down because they're not winning. They're not winning a single game this year. They might win against the Athens. I think they do have a chance to win against the Giants, but otherwise they just don't hit. And honestly, I can't even say the Giants. I think they go, if they're lucky, 0-8 with 1 win and 15 losses. And honestly, I think that is fair because looking back at the Packers, they've had 1-17, then they had a 10-8, then an 8-10, then they had 2-16, then they had a 6-12, and they've had an 8-8. They've only had one season where they were better, and they just missed the playoffs that season. If you're going to do something, you got to do well. And unfortunately, this team is not in the position to even come close to making the playoffs. Anyways, I must say you got lucky if you get one win this year. I say one win is lucky, and that's against the one team that I think you might have a chance to beat, the Athens. But even then, I'm not even too sure I'm confident in that. Well, the Lions are a team that is questionably to me one of the teams that may not be even close to position. The Lions had the 35th offense and defense. They were not in a position to even have a chance. And sadly, I'm going to say right now, they might have a little bit of a chance, but not much of one going into this next season. I originally had them predicted to go 7-9. I'm not quite sure it's going to be good enough. I'm going to give them the win against the first 4 teams, 5 teams. I'm going to give them 5 wins straight. But after that, they kind of fall out. They have a loss against the Legends. They will win against the Indians. There will be 6 wins. They'll have 6 wins. They'll have minutes. They will then, however, lose the next 3, 4 games, 5 games, 6 games, 7 games, 8 games, 9 games. Yeah, so unfortunately, the next 9 games, they're all going to lose. I'm giving them a little bit of a benefit here to say that 6-10 is probably not unreasonable and probably physically possible. However, 6-10 with being one of the moderate middle teams is probably going to be difficult. Just to say this, I do think the Lions are going to be 4th in their division, and 6-10 is not terrible, but it's not great considering that the Lions average with their worst record was actually 3 seasons ago, which was 4-14. They were 5-12 last season. They're going to get slightly better than this season, but unfortunately, $3-5 is going to be 3-5 in the division is probably reasonable, and honestly, I'd say that's probably the best they're going to get. We get into the last division with the Techs, who have been really surprising over this last couple years. Looking at the Techs just regularly just at the Techs, which is not the Texans, is the Techs. Techs have actually have been kind of off and on. They've been good and then bad. Actually, to be honest, they've been good 2 years and they've been bad 2 years. So they've only been around since 2018. So they didn't actually play any. It's going to be one of those teams that's going to be kind of interesting going into the season. I do say they win against the first team, that they lose the next two games off of it, because, you know, Warriors and Kings are both going to be tough games to beat, to play against, especially when they're playing at home, away for one of them. I say UNC is going to be a win, which is a divisional win. But looking at the next game, the Bobcats are actually not going to be a bad team. But because of the context with the Bobcats and UNC playing each other before, Bobcats and Techs playing each other before, the Bucks have won more games than the Techs. And I'm going to give them the win here. I'm going to give them another win against UNC, putting them at 3-2, putting them at 3 wins in the division. Undefeated in the division so far. But the Bears are a team that's going to be interesting and probably pretty tough. I'm going to give them a loss here. I do not think they're going to quite have it, putting them at 3-3. The Pirates will be a loss. There's no. Then I got the Dolphins. I'm going to give them the win against the Dolphins when they're playing away. I'm actually going to give them a win in both cases. I did not have. In both cases, putting them undefeated, continue undefeated in the division, put them down at 4-4. So so far they've won every game in the division, but lost every game. And they're going to win every game in the division so far up until week 12. They will take up 7 wins and 4 losses. Playing Westville will be another win, putting them at 8-4. Ravens is a tough team, unfortunately. I think they're going to have a tough time and lose that one, putting them at 8-5. Well, guess what, guys? They play the Bobcats again. They play at home, and they will take a win here. It's going to be a tough one, but they will win that game. I have them, however, playing the Stars and Dolphins. I do think they're going to lose both those games. Putting them down at 9-7. Now, you might say something that's real weird. 1, 2, you've got no losses in a division, which is shocking. They have no losses in the division. But putting them 1-7, though, everywhere else, because they do have tough games outside the division, because their division is actually really not that difficult. But everything outside the division is kind of difficult. So I'm going to say the Techs are going to be putting themselves in a position where they actually might have a chance to win every game except the games outside the division. I'm going to say they go 8-0. Even though they only have a 9-7 record. I think this is going to be an interesting team this year. And now we have the UNC, which is a team that stands for, in this unit, because a lot of people don't know this, United National Cats. It is a Cats team. Their team that's going to be in a position that's kind of weird, because I had them in 8-8 before. I have them a loss against both the times I played the Techs, but I have the wins against the previous 3 teams. I even have them playing against the Dragons and winning. It's going to be tough. They have the Bobcats, the Colts, and I do have the Bobcats winning against the Bobcats, winning against the Colts. I do have them losing against the Dolphins. Their Dolphins, by the way, in the same division, which is why I didn't show it possibly before. It is going to be tough in the division, though, with putting themselves at 4-2. They got the Indians, easy win. Superman, easy win. Giants, the Jets, nope, easy win. Foxes, nope, that's a loss. Dolphins, I'm going to give them a loss here. Beagles, easy win. Colts, win. And even though they have 5 losses and 11 wins, this is actually going to be interesting because this could be potentially the team that actually wins the division just because of going really well. Not going to be great, but not going to be terrible. Honestly, I'd say UNC is going to be positioned in such a way they could potentially win the division. They might not, but they could, and I think, honestly, it's possible that they win their division. Now, we are looking at a team that is going to be interesting. Bobcats are not going to be a bad team, but they're not going to be a great team either. They start off against the R's, which will be their first loss. Then UNC, they take a loss. Colt, Dolphins, loss. Tex, loss. Ravens, loss. Oh, geez, we have already starting off with a terrible start with no wins in the division yet. And sadly, Indians, even the Indians are going to have a hard time. They're going to have a hard time playing against. They're going to win the game. I do have them winning. But losing against UNC again, losing against, look at this. This is a terrible, in the first half of the season, they've only won 1 game. And none of them are in the division? I mean, come on, you gotta have something in it. Sadly, they got the Packers, and the Packers could be, it's really gonna be a really tough game. Again, no, loss. Colts, boy. Even though they have a 1-8 record, I don't think it's gonna be terrible. Right now, they might have been eliminated from the playoffs at this point. They probably aren't, but they might be. And I would say they do take a lucky win against the Colts, but they're going to lose against the Dolphins for the second time. 2 wins, 9 losses, not great. And then you got Superman. They lose against the Superman. They win against the Colts and then lose against the Tex. Putting 3 wins, getting only 1 win so far, putting in 5 wins. Then in Warriors, and then they got the Browns. Browns and Bobcats will probably hit up a fight. It's still going to be a loss. Only 3 wins and 13 losses. Not great at all. And I probably have some of these things wrong here. I think 1 win, though, is probably going to be lucky if they even have that many wins going into the division. And sadly, I don't think the Bobcats are going to do well this year. I wish I could give the Colts some better news, but unfortunately, I don't think I can. The Colts are in such a terrible division. They're in one of the toughest divisions for them. Not necessarily so much tough for regularly, but we got ourselves a pretty start. We're gonna get a loss. Loss. Yeah, I've got them losing every game. That's right, every game. The only 2 games I think they're going to have a chance at winning are the games when they play the Chargers. Yeah, they play 1 team and win those 2 games. But sadly, that does not do well for them. 2-14 with 0 wins in the division and 8 losses. I'm sorry, that is not going to do well for you. Colts, maybe you should try getting. Maybe you'll get. Here's the thing. Maybe you'll get the #1 pick next season. I mean, that's possible, right? I mean, having 2 wins and 14 losses and only having 0 wins in the division probably isn't going to be, the worst thing in the world, right? I don't know. We have the last player team, and it is the Dolphins, who have the toughest schedule. I am so sorry for the Dolphins because the Dolphins do not deserve this. But it's okay. They've got some good games going ahead. They got the Colts. They get a win here. The Beagles are going to be a game that's going to be very tough. And unfortunately, I think they're going to actually win the second game, but maybe not so much as the way they might. They probably will go into overtime. Bobcats, a win. The Cardinals, win. Colts, second game, win. Superman, win. Saints, well, I love to say that they're going to go, pretty good position, but the Saints are going to be a tough team. Sorry, that's a loss. It's your first loss, though, and you're going to get a win against. You're going to get a loss against the Texans. So you're only taking 2 losses, 6-2 at this point. With that's not bad. You get 4-2. Then you get the UNC in the very next week. That's 4. That's actually not quite 4-2. It's gonna be actually a win against the Dolphins, against the UNC here. You get Leland Cats. Nope, that's a loss. And sadly, even with 10 games, 7-10 is not bad. You've got a pretty good division, but you got one of the tougher starts at Bobcats. I don't even know how the Intercats. They got the Bobcats. That will probably be a win, putting themselves at 5-1, 8-2. Then you got Stars. Nope. Sorry. Let me just give you all this. I think the only game you've got a chance for at the end here with 5 losses, putting you at 8-8. And sadly, I do not think it's going to be great. Dolphins are not going to be terrible, but unfortunately, it's just going to be in a position where they're going to have having the hardest schedule. It's not putting them in a great position. And sadly, even though we have the hardest schedule, that is going to make them probably suffer. So that is what we have predicted for this. I will take a look back at this once the season is over, which I believe, looking correct to make sure I have this right, should be like 19 weeks after the season begins, which is February 10th. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. It's like I believe at the end of June. We'll take a look at this again at that time. Of course, I'll put these things up. I'll put them up together so you can have seedings. I'll have also the link to areas if you do want to take control of the team, which I mentioned this in the previous one. I didn't mention it in this one yet. If you want to take over a team, all you have to do is send an email to nbl@sportsalad.com. There will be a link below in the description. I will see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to keep your game on, and I'll see you in the next video.